Hey everybody, welcome back to the 6th round post-fight show with me, Zane Simon, and my co-host, as always, Eddie Mercado, coming to you all just from the end of UFC 290 International Fight Week, Las Vegas, and I mean easily the best UFC card this year.
Oh,
Like,
for sure. In a
I'm,
while.
yeah, I'm trying to remember what the last card this good was, because and I know there's been something else in between, but like the first thing that's springing to mind is like the GSP Bisping card, and that was like 2017. I know that's not the right answer, but this was really, really goddamn good.
No, it was fantastic. There were 4 sub 1 minute finishes, which I believe is a record for the modern era UFC. That's
Yeah.
insane. That's insane. The main card absolutely delivered. I mean, I got zero complaints on this one, honestly. There was a couple scorecards that were, a little questionable, but typical MMA judging. But all in
Yeah.
all, I am thrilled with the way this card came
No.
out.
I got no complaint. And I've even said before, and I will say it again, I will say it for this. The best way to have a fight card, you want you want that little bit of controversy. You want the thing that like gets you a little mad. You want the thing that like slows you down a little, it bores you a little, so that the next thing that picks you back up is just that much better. You got to have just that little bit of sour in there with the sweet, a little bit of you're making a stew, you throw in a little vinegar, just like hit that hit. You don't want all vinegar, but just that little taste.
Oh,
It makes all the flavors pop.
I embody the Sour Patch.
Mm-hmm.
I am a
Mm-hmm.
living Sour Patch. So, yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing but positive vibes coming out of this, honestly. Even I will say, with half the internet once again dumping on me for one of my scorecards. Which,
Oh, I can't wait to get into that.
yeah. But first, we'll jump right in here for the main event and a fight that nobody's going to argue with, that nobody can come in and contest how, who should have won what, how it should have gone. Well, I mean, almost. For the most part, Alexander Volkanovski, totally dominant, fantastic performance, did exactly what he needed to do, took Yair down, grappled, wrestled him, slowed him down. We saw immediately why he had to do that in that third round when he was like, yeah, you know what? I'll get on the back foot. Let's try a little striking from range. I'll let you lead a little, Yair. And like, Yair just started blasting him with shots, and it's just like, yeah, okay, you should go back to the pushing Yair backwards. That works much better for you.
No, it's funny. In the first round, you see when Yair was landing a couple of combos,
Yeah.
the response from Volkanovski was he was dismissive and it was a bunch of no's, like no, that's
Yeah.
not it, that's not it. That third round though, when Yair started to connect, he was starting to smile and get he got the acknowledgement.
Yeah.
But shortly after that, that's when the right hook came in. And
well, the thing is, and here's a little tiny touch of controversy, not a big one, but a minute before that right hook came in, the head came in and smashed Yair Rodriguez's jaw. Now, Yair is like one of the toughest dudes out there, and he's got a hell of a chin, and he had the time to take and to like sit and say, yeah, okay, yeah, how am I feeling? How am I doing? All that. He said he's recovered. He went back in there, and there was a bit of a break before the right hook that hurt him. But you can't help feeling like that's just a little tiny bit cumulative. Like those headbutts, those head clashes are nasty business because it's something you never see coming. Like the people get hit with them. It's always you're watching the hands, you're watching the feet, you're watching the torso, you're watching everything else except for the person's forehead because that's never supposed to be hitting you. It's never supposed to be hitting you in the chin. You're not, you're not paying attention to it. So it always comes out of left field. That said, it's also a fight that Volkanovski was pretty dominant in. So it's not gonna be the lasting impression of that fight.
No, and not even enough to warrant a rematch of any kind.
Because
no. Like you're saying, Volkanovski was pantsing Yair out there, and And that head clash, I'm not going to call it headbutt, that clash
Yeah.
of heads, that's what kind of woke Yair up. And that's when he started coming out and actually pulling the trigger. He looked really gun shy out there against Volkanovski. And that's Volkanovski giving him so many different looks, constantly switching stances, constantly feinting, constantly threatening a takedown, showing the takedown. I mean, it's just such a tough, so many inputs to deal with that Yair just really didn't have many openings.
No, I mean, when it's one of the things like we were talking about going into this Conor and I on the fifth section, Yair he's surprisingly good off the back foot for how much his stance breaks down and how much his defense breaks down because he's so agile. He can do things like, oh, I'm circling backwards and I'm like crossing my feet up and here's a jumping switch kick. Here's a little question mark kick sneaking over your shoulder. But it is one of those things where you also then have to acknowledge Yair's his game breaks down a lot when he's moving backwards. And every time Volk started pushing him backwards, it was one-way traffic pretty much. It was his ability to get in on whatever he wanted and to get Yair to the mat, wrestle him down. And Volk's wrestling looked great, honestly.
It really did. And I think that preparing for Makhachev really boosted his game.
Yeah.
He looked a little Dagestani out there in moments. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was it's like he took a little page out of Frankie Akers' book here. That wasn't that long ago. Well, it was kind of ago, but
it was 50. It was 2015 or 2017,
something like that. It was a brilliant MMA performance by Volkanovski.
It was a great performance. It was a great fight. It was smart. I mean, this is the difference too. When, we're talking about Brandon Moreno, Alexandre Pantoja here in a minute. And the difference between Moreno and Volkanovski in like two fighters who have very technical striking games, have very good jabs, are very good scramblers, are, very physical, capable fighters. But the thing that Volkanovski does that Moreno has never been able to do is that while he's beating you, he is subtracting parts of your game from the fight. He is taking tools away from you and making sure you can't do stuff. When he has Yair on the back foot, Yair Rodriguez is not landing kicks on him. When he has Yair Rodriguez on his back, you didn't see any of Yair Rodriguez like threatening with a triangle or threatening with a submission. He was shutting down every single part of Yair Rodriguez's game when he was implementing his own game.
Yeah, I guess we should also shout out Frank Hickman wrestling.
Yeah,
let's not undermine that. I know he played a part in this, and Craig Jones, phenomenal BJJ guru, I'll say, and. Man, just his build also. Volkanovski is built like a wrestler.
He is.
He's not, but the fact that he's really he's taking a page out of GSP's book, honestly.
He won an Aussie wrestling championship at some point, He had some credentials there. It's not folk style. It's not, it's not. It is definitely one of those things where, like, he didn't not know how to wrestle at all. He wasn't unfamiliar with it. It's like a kickboxer coming in here and like, oh, I hate grappling. I'm learning how. He was at least comfortable getting on the mat with people. But yeah, his wrestling game has upped a lot over the years, definitely.
Yeah, his MMA wrestling, it's through the roof. The way he blends everything together is pretty seamless, and I don't think anybody's fucking with him, dude, at 145. Nope. You can say what you want about Ilia Topuria. He's fun. He's exciting.
Yeah. But I can't wait to see it. It'll be fascinating because, I mean, that is one of the things I will say that we saw out of Topuria that I like and that Volk does, and it'll be fascinating to see how they face off, is when we saw Topuria against Emmett, Topuria also had a game that was very much just taking away all the tools that Emmett knew how to use, and making sure that he was using Emmett's own game against him, so that whenever Emmett tried to do something, he would be walking himself into something into a place he didn't want to be. he'd be chasing Topuria at an angle out of the pocket, where suddenly Topuria is sliding off and catching him, and suddenly like, oh, I can't come forward and bowl after you with big strikes. I have to just sit back and let you pick me off. But then we did see Emmett like dig deep and come back later in that fight and sort of take it to Topuria a little. So yeah, I mean, I'm still going to be picking Volkanovski if or when these two do face off, but it'll be fascinating because Topuria is definitely putting together that kind of thoughtful, high level, let me manage this fight, not just win it kind of game.
And he's like featherweight's last hope.
Yeah.
To be quite honest.
Luke Skywalker out here.
They actually had a little face-off. Did you see it?
Mm-hmm.
When Volk was leaving the cage, they actually got face-to-face, and I think it's going to happen unless the rematch with Makhachev could pop up.
We're still looking at like Makhachev in October in Abu Dhabi. I mean, I guess maybe that could be Volk, but it seemed like it was much more likely to be Charles Oliveira. Although after, I think it seemed also like Makhachev only really wanted to fight Beneil Dariush, because once Oliveira won, there was sort of like plans are changing. I don't know if this is really the thing I care about anymore from Makhachev. So yeah, it could be. Maybe they slot Volk in there, but with him having surgery on his arm, he said.
Oh, true.
Like, yeah. I get the feeling that he's not going to be on the time frame for that fight. At which point they're going to probably make the Charles Oliveira rematch. At which point Volk is probably going to be on a different. If he wants to fight again by the end of the year, it's going to be Topuria, is my thought. But
yeah,
that's all pure projection. So, well, let's jump over then to this co-main event here. Brandon Moreno, Alexandre Pantoja. And of course, this is the fight and the card that everybody was dumping on me for. Because I scored it, and this is a very much I think this could go either way. I'm not going to die on this hill kind of scorecard. I'm going to preface that because I don't need more hate.
Hold on. So you scored it for Moreno.
I scored it for Brandon Moreno.
Okay, well, Zane, I also scored it for Brandon Moreno.
Great. This is what I love to hear.
I gave Moreno the third round. Because the strikes were pretty even, in my opinion, with the difference being that massive elbow that Moreno landed, cut open Pantoja, made him bleed. Where I come from, that's called damage. And that was enough to take a close round in my eyes. I can see if you gave it the other way, fine, whatever. But I personally gave that third round to Moreno. Yeah. And I got it 48-47 Moreno.
Same. 2-3-4 Moreno, 1-5 Pantoja. Those were pretty clear. Anybody who says round 4 and round 5 were exactly the same, I think you're full of shit. I think Moreno had significantly better damaging strikes in round 4 than in round 5, where it was a fairly even round. Moreno maybe a little bit ahead before just getting backpacked out of the fight, where to a point where it's like, okay, you're not going to, no judge except for apparently, what's his name?
Cleary.
Damn it.
Wasn't it Cleary?
No, it wasn't Cleary. It was the guy it's the guy who's usually a good judge. Ben Cartledge gave Moreno round 5 as well, which I don't like that, but
yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah. I will say, I can see 3 as a toss-up, 2 and 4 Moreno, and 1 and 5 Pantoja. I got no problem with the 48-47 either way. I'm not going to, like I said, this is not a hill to die on. This was a fantastic, amazing, absolutely awesome fight,
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, fight of the year kind of fight. And
it was really good.
That's the only thing to really take away. Yeah, there are two other things, and they're both kind of a shame because we got a fight of the year candidate here. We've got an absolutely insane, awesome, back and forth, crazy good. Both fighters having big rounds where they really hurt the other person really badly. Like Pantoja coming right out of the gate and hurting Moreno. Moreno coming right back in the next round and hurting Pantoja. And you're like, oh man, is Pantoja gassed? Can he even keep up with this? Is this all done? And Pantoja, every round after that, he started like he had not just been incredibly gassed.
Yeah, I don't know how he did it.
I don't know how he did it either. It was absolutely remarkable. And the thing is, though, is that now he's 3 up on Brandon Moreno.
Wow.
Are we going to run this back?
2.5, but yeah.
Are we going to...
2.5, Zane.
Are we going to run this?
One was an exhibition.
Sure. But are we running this back? Are we doing it again? Because, I hate to say it, but Amir Albazi versus Alexandre Pantoja is not the world's coolest title fight.
I'd rather see the Brandon Royval rematch with Pantoja than than a Moreno rematch or an Albazi match.
Yeah. See, I'm thinking that it'll probably be Albazi that gets it because they can put him potentially on that October card in Abu Dhabi.
Right.
And have a second title fight for that card. This was a brutal fight. So if Pantoja can even make that kind of turnaround, who knows?
Yeah, Pantoja put everything into this.
He really did.
It sounded like he summoned some deep-rooted childhood trauma.
Oh yeah, there were demons there. Yeah,
calling out his estranged father, asking if he was proud now, in a second language at that.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was on that note too. I can't be happier for Alexandre Pantoja. I didn't think he'd win this fight. I thought Moreno had done enough, had improved enough to win it, and you could see he had the slicker technique. He had the control when this was on its feet. When it was talking about just for long stretches, who's landing the better shots, who's looking better, it was Moreno, but he couldn't ever keep the fighting control. And that's the thing I was talking about with Volkanovski. Moreno couldn't ever take any tools out of Pantoja's game. When he was landing shots, if Pantoja wanted to fire back at him, he was hitting Moreno clean. When Pantoja was shooting in, Moreno wasn't ready. He was getting taken down. There was no part where Moreno was subtracting any of the things that Pantoja wanted to do. So it ended up being a very even fight where both guys got to do a lot of what they wanted. But
yeah, all the commanding was happening on Pantoja's side.
It really was.
Moreno, he was fighting hard, but he wasn't dictating where the fight was taking place or how hard the fight was being had at. He was just, I guess, following the lead of Pantoja. And I thought he won the fight, but whatever.
Yeah, it's not a thing I'm going to argue. I'm just saying, I can't be happier for Pantoja because this is a dude that he says, when you know my story, you'll love me. But he has been slaving away in this flyweight division forever. He has been out there putting in the work, fighting for years. He's 33 now. He made his debut in 2007.
Wow.
That's
nuts.
That is 16 years.
And he's had to watch someone he beat twice or 1.5 times. In all these main events, getting these title fights, getting all the royal treatment as much as you can at flyweight.
Like Pantoja, he's never been the dude. He's never been the guy that the UFC was ever going to turn to and lean on. He's never headlined a card before this. Or he still hasn't, I should say. He didn't headline this one.
Well, he'd never been to championship rounds before this.
Yeah.
To my knowledge.
Yeah, no, he'd never fought in a 5-round fight. He'd never gotten that spotlight at all, whole career. So to see somebody like him come in, and especially in a division like flyweight, which is not kind to longevity, to see him come in and win this title now, at this point in his career, it's really cool. And then, yeah, like I said, do you go back and do you replay this Moreno fight? You say book the Royval fight. I think they're going to do Albazi. I think the fight then to make is Moreno versus Royval too. If Royval can win that, he gets another title shot. If Moreno can win that, he needs to win as many of those fights as he can if he wants to get another title shot, is my thought.
I just hate that Albazi's getting the title shot because I don't think he beat Cara France, and I don't think he's deserving of it. So.
I know it's not a cool fight to make right now. The only big thing is that the UFC have a selling hook to it, and it's not to the broader MMA audience. It's specifically to, we can put this guy on the Abu Dhabi card.
Sure, I get it.
Yeah. All right. Great moment for Pantoja. Amazing fight. I will take getting cooked get my ass beat in the quote tweets online if just for the quality of this fight. I can handle that. I bring this to a middleweight bout though. Dricus du Plessis beating Robert Whittaker, and if this card were not so great, I would be so depressed right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Just because it's Robert Whittaker?
Not because it's Robert Whittaker. I mean, I do like Robert Whittaker. He seems like a nice guy, whatever. Dricus du Plessis' game should not beat Robert Whittaker. That's just not how it's supposed to work.
Well, it should at middleweight, though, right?
Yeah, but that's just a whole, yes, you're not wrong, but middleweight, that just makes everything worse.
No, this is perfect. This is, it moves along the division properly.
It does.
It's fresh.
I won't lie, it's great for bloody elbow. I mean, UFC 293 is going to be a big deal. That is going to do very well for coverage.
Yeah, I expect a very racially charged lead up.
Yeah, there's that. But it's also just, I mean, I love Robert Whittaker. The hardcore fans love Robert Whittaker. Fans in general, MMA fans in general, do not care about Robert Whittaker even a little. His fights do not draw at all. So having somebody like du Plessis out there alongside Adesanya, who is one of the sport's biggest draws these days, like, that is a card that people will be talking about every week for the next 3 months.
Oh, I'm going to be excited personally.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Business-wise, I'm excited. And now, analytically, I am depressed because it just...
Why?
It is the, like, it's like the Kung Fu master training with, like, the swinging bag of sand where he's, like, ducking and doing cool moves and all that. But in this case, the bag just hit him and knocked him out.
No, come on now. Dricus du Plessis looked vastly improved. He looked composed, much more composed and less frantic than the past. Much more defensively responsible than in the past. And, he's fucking huge.
He is.
We're getting this influx of huge middleweights that are pretty much just light heavyweights that somehow can cut an excess amount of weight.
He still looks like he's running from a flight of bees every time somebody throws more than 2 punches at him, but
even if he's just in open space, right?
Yeah.
Like he's just real Keith Jardine-esque, I'll say. If you remember him, he was always
you think
he doesn't look professional.
Keith Jardine had a rhythm. It was just a really weird rhythm. Dricus du Plessis is just a chaos bubble. Like, there's no rhyme or rhythm or reason that anything happens. It's just it is just a big wall of muscles that will run into you over and over again for all time. You have to knock him out cold, or he will. It's like he's picking his own body up by the ankles and swinging it at you.
Well, I think the newly UFC Hall of Famer Jens Pulver, he once said, when you train in hell, hell's not that bad of a place to be. And I think the same might be true for chaos. And if you just constantly live in chaos, you tend to do better when it's more normal for you when it actually happens. Kind of like sparring. You know, the more sparring you do, the more ready you're going to be for a fight. And of course, within reason. But you're just prepared for that fire. And
no, I mean, you can see it out of Cameron Simon too, out of that same camp. These are dudes that are very clearly very comfortable and trained very hard in like chaotic MMA sparring, where they're not just like, oh yeah, we're doing some boxing and some sparring, or we're doing some wrestling sparring, or something, but they are doing like full out rounds of MMA all the time. Get messy, go everywhere, do everything, and be comfortable all the time with it.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
Might not be great for longevity, right? They might not be around forever. But I think it's definitely great for forging fighters. And Dricus is the next contender for the UFC middleweight title, like it or not.
I mean, I don't hate it for his sake, and I don't hate it because I love Whittaker. It is such a like chaotic wild man style of fighting, you know.
Well, I had a buddy on Twitter, Dane Curley. He asked for some betting advice, and I was like, you know, if Dricus can avoid getting knocked out in the third, taking the plus 3.5 round spread on him sounds like a good idea. And sure as shit, if he ended up getting the finish, which is a payout anyways, but I wasn't convinced that Whittaker would have been able to finish Dricus. He's been on a crazy decision streak in his wins. True. And Dricus is a monster. He's a fucking monster, man.
Yeah. All right. That brings us. Well, we're gonna skip over the post-fight speech there because you know.
Why, Zane? What was said? Hit me with some quotes, Zane, if you don't mind.
Lots of things.
Like what?
Just, you know, stuff.
Hit me with some verbatim.
There were some genetics brought into it.
Some 23andMe.
23andMe.
Or wait, is that what it is?
He said, yeah, it is 23andMe. He said 36andMe and 26andMe. And, you know, yeah. Just moving right along. Talk about this catchweight bout instead. Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner, and also fight of the year kind of contender here. Yes, as one of our commenters has said, one thing repeatedly. Yeah, it was that was the speech. There was a lot of one word over and over again.
Which word was that, Zane?
You know what?
For those that missed it,
Dan Hooker, he had this awesome fight with Jalen Turner, and that's what we're talking about now. And this was, I really thought, I was thinking totally on just like, I think Jalen Turner is going to make Dan Hooker look pretty bad. I think he's going to come out here and he's going to be super fast and he's going to start cracking Dan Hooker and he's going to take him out. And that looked like a pretty smart prediction for a couple of minutes.
Sure.
For a little while. But credit to Dan Hooker because he was 2 steps behind for the first half of this fight. And every exchange that he had with Turner, he was very clear-eyed, very watchful of what was coming at him, and would always find 1 or 2 counters in the mix with whatever Turner was bringing to him. So it was Turner coming in with like 2, 3, 4 punches, and Dan Hooker might only land one in response, but it was always a good, clean, hard shot. And Hooker always kept his wits about him. And the further that fight got, the further the fight went, the more that one shot started to count. And the moment it started to count just a little bit more than the offense that Turner was putting out, like there are a few fighters who flip a switch better from the guy they are in neutral space in an open equal exchange fight to when they're winning than Dan Hooker. When Dan Hooker is winning, that dude needs to be there all the time because he beat Jalen Turner's ass for a round and a half. You know?
Oh, look what he did to Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
We got to shout out Anton, by the way, one of our Bloody Elbow editors. He said everyone's sleeping on Hooker, and sure enough, we were sleeping on Dan Hooker. We didn't show him the respect. He's been forged in the fire. He's proven himself. He's been in there with the elites. He might not have come out on top against a lot of those guys, but he put up some respectable showings, and you know he was able to weather similar storms that he's seen in the past and just step on that accelerator and take the win. Yeah.
Great performance from Hooker. Really suspect card turned in by Adelaide Bird here, who scored round 3 for Turner. I could see round 2. Round 2 was a little 50-50. I still would say Dan Hooker hurt Jalen Turner a lot more than Jalen Turner hurt him.
Sure.
But that was like Jalen Turner still had a lot going in the first half of that round before the script started getting flipped on him. But round 3?
Isn't she the one that was involved in that Triple G Canelo?
Yeah, she's repeatedly had cards so bad that people have hounded her out of the game for months on end.
How is she back? I don't understand.
I mean, combat sports judging is a world where longevity and who you know is of high value.
Yeah, it's kind of like Congress and the Senate and
it's a place when you get to the top level, it's very hard to kick somebody out of that position because it doesn't, it's not like these jobs pay a lot. These are people doing it volunteer. And so you're always going to go to like, oh, well, how responsible can we hold somebody for something we're not really paying them that much money for? And, at that point, we got to lean on their experience. They've done this so long and they've done so much.
Even above all that, like, what's their relationships with the powers that be?
Yeah. Do we know?
Whose aunt is that? You know what I mean? Like,
a lot. I think like Adelaide Bird's husband is a longtime referee. So these are people that are like, their connections to the inside combat sports world are very long and deep. Anyway, terrible scorecard, fun as hell fight, and great win for Dan Hooker. I don't know what this sets him up for, but I will say Renato Moicano is out there, and we can do Renato Moicano versus Dan Hooker.
Oh man, that's brilliant. I'm totally down for that. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Hooker, man, I'm so happy for him. So many people wrote him off, myself included.
I mean, he did everything in the lead up to make it seem like he was real distracted too. That like he's talking about Tony Ferguson and how pissed off he was about getting offered that fight, and talking about Islam Makhachev and this secret IV that he knows and has evidence that Makhachev got, but apparently, it's not evidence he can show to anybody or tell anybody about. And so it always just seemed like, he's just in like a place where you're like, yeah, you really focused on Jalen Turner? Is this really, You've talked about retirement before. You've talked about finding the fire again. None of these things are things that, like, as you know, as an analyst, you want to hear, and you're like, oh yeah, that's the dude I want to bet my money on.
I try not to read too much into what fighters say, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's a very smart thing.
But it does seem like he broke his arm in the fight.
He did. We saw the X-rays even.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, broke his wrist.
He might be out for a while.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's true. I don't know when we'll see him fight again, because that'll probably keep him out of any potential to be on that Australia card, which would be the obvious place to put him right back. But
I can't believe they brought in Adesanya to have a face-off with Duplessis. Like, when has that ever been a good idea?
They do it, and you know what? I'm sure right now Dana White's sitting at a press conference saying that was a bad decision we made to bring Adesanya into the cage. I wish we hadn't done that. And next pay-per-view, they're going to have the champ sitting cage side, and they're going to walk him into the cage, and they're going to they do it every single time, and every single time they come back around like, oh, man, that was stupid. It's not a learning position.
No, it's always cringy.
Yeah,
9 out of 10 times, it's full cringe. There was like the one time it wasn't was the Brandon Moreno when he was super cordial and respectful, and when they brought Fig in for him. Other than that, though, it's always getting weird, and it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess the UFC's trying something.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump down to this middleweight bout. Bo Nickal, Valentin Woodburn, and man, Nickal said it. I said it, which of course means that it really should have been true. Probably you were saying it, I'm going to assume. The smart thing that seemed like Valentin Woodburn had to do would be to just go after Nickal as hard as he could. Just take the power, take the speed, go after him straight away as best you can. Make it chaotic. You're coming in here on like 3 days, 4 days notice or whatever. Like, just put the screws to him. See what shakes out of chaos. Instead, he played on the back foot and tried to draw Woodburn in, or draw Nickal in to like counter him. It's like, man, you are a 5'8" middleweight. You can't. If you're going to let somebody else throw first, they're just going to hit you first. And Bo Nickal he's no idea of not anybody's idea of a striker, but he just was like, okay, here's a long right hand, and I'm going to land it before you because my arms are 5 inches longer than yours. And that was all it took.
Oh man, Bo knows hands. Come on now.
Yeah.
I know of all people, Zane, you had to have loved the old leap in rear uppercut. I know how much you love that as a way to just a naked strike.
Yeah,
sure
nothing better than leading with a rear hand uppercut where you're jumping into the pocket.
But it's effective. That was the death blow here.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not. It's the technique is super porous, right? Defensively speaking, you're going to get clipped if you keep doing it that way. But in the moment against that guy, it's not going to matter.
No.
The division doesn't matter. You're going to be able to get away with a lot of it's more about function than it is about form.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be pretty. If you got horsepower and you step on that gas and you're first, like you're saying, you're gonna have more success in the middleweight, light heavyweight, even heavyweight division.
Yep. Now I gotta say though, this lines up. This came out of the Substack live chat that I've been running. So I gotta give that room credit for this idea. But the moment I heard it, I'm like, yeah, we got to do this. You got to do Bo Nickal, Joe Pyfer now, right? For palest middleweight in the UFC.
I don't think they'll do it.
No,
I like it, but
It'll
I
be
feel
fun.
like they're at the same dinner table with Dana White. I don't
True.
see
It's
them
true.
clashing until later, much later.
Also, that would be a very difficult card to judge, just because judges would probably have a lot of trouble telling them apart.
Zane, that might be racist. I don't know. Is this, what are you, Israel Adesanya? What's going on here?
I'm just saying, like, the light shines on him because that's real reflective surface there, and I wanted to know, like,
I don't know. I kind of feel like Nickal's going to keep getting these matchups where someone's going to fall through and he's going to get these short notice replacements. This might be by design, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but yeah, I mean, he's so raw. I don't keep giving him inexperienced guys, and hopefully he won't have Aaron Pico moments.
Yep. He's definitely the UFC's Aaron Pico right now, and it's, just, do you avoid the big pitfalls? Even Pico is now like up in contender status for Bellator. Do you avoid the big pitfalls on what is very, very almost certainly a rise to contender status for Nickal? Yeah. Just because
I think it's tougher for Pico coming, being a smaller guy where his athleticism doesn't count for as much.
Yeah, it's much more. There are a lot more comparable athletes down at that level, whereas Nickal, being a top tier athlete at 185 pounds, you're a pretty rare specimen in that division. Yeah. All right, that brings us to a welterweight. This is if for me, Du Plessis versus Robert Whittaker was the bad vibes fight of the night. I look. Not asking you to share my vibes. I'm just saying, for me personally, if that was the bad vibes fight of the night, then the good vibes fight of the night has to be Robbie Lawler absolutely melting Nico Price in 38 seconds. Come on. And then the UFC, in a rare little, like, semi-pride moment for the UFC, actually having a custom video package for a fighter that's not just them in front of a backdrop with a mic saying, "Oh, I'm gonna beat my opponent's ass today, and I love my family." Like, no, they put together an actual video package for Robbie Lawler to be like, "Here's your ride into the sunset, man. Enjoy it." And it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Man, the second Price went out, I just started crying my fucking eyes out. I'm not even gonna lie, dude. I had to like hide my face on my shirt. My girlfriend's sitting next to me, and I'm just like losing it. And she doesn't understand. Like, she doesn't know what's going on. She's like, what happened? She's like, did you bet money on the guy that lost or something? Like, why? She didn't understand. But like, I've been watching Lawler for over 2 decades. And for him to go out on a win, like, I want nothing more for legends than to go out this way. It's rare air, very rare air.
And to, like, have the whole Hall of Fame ceremony the night before, have, walk out here, get the knockout, to not just a win, but like a brutal classic Robbie Lawler knockout. And then you get the whole highlight package and the arena full of, it's just, man, that dude has earned every ounce of respect he could ever get in his entire life,
Even the walkout was heavy for me. Like, you can see it on his face. He's taking in the moment. He's just wide-eyed, trying not to cry. I'm trying not to cry. It was such an incredible moment. And I don't think there is a greater ambassador for the sport that this send-off could happen for. I mean, everything just went so perfectly, such a storybook ending. If this were a movie, I'd be like, yeah, right, whatever. That would never happen in real MMA. He would get shit kicked about 6 times in a row. And then, glue factory time for you, bud. But man, he did it, man. What a
Yeah,
legend. What
love
a
to see
fucking
it.
legend.
I had somebody, Adam Jones, here said that the Ruthless send off is some of the best stuff the UFC has ever done, and I agree, man. Like, they do not have nearly enough moments of that kind of individuality and creativity anymore, where you get to really feel like, oh, they cared a lot about this fighter, and they want to make sure that everybody else knows how much this fighter means to the sport.
It had to have come from the higher ups. This is like a Dana White or a Fertitta. One of them made that happen.
Yeah.
This otherwise, if it was just the machine operating, it would have fell through the cracks. But honestly, man, Lawler needs some sort of gold pass where wherever he goes, he gets complimentary everything, no matter where he goes, worldwide. Like,
that's right.
Class act from start to finish. Like, we watched him grow up in the cage or in the ring.
I even saw this the other day. Somebody brought it up after he made weight. And I couldn't even believe it, but I was like, holy shit. Robbie Lawler has never missed weight in his whole career.
Professional.
Never once. Like, dude fought for 22 years and 47 fights, never missed weight once.
And he's never been one of the, like, measure out all the foods and all that.
No, his whole Strikeforce run was him basically just being like, yeah, I'm not taking this stuff that seriously. I don't really have the fire and the passion for it. I'm just kind of, he legendarily didn't spar all those years. So it's just like staying in shape and then showing up for fights, and that was it. Not cutting weight because he was fighting at middleweight. And then comes back to the UFC and is just like, I'm right where I want to be. I'm going to start taking it seriously again. Oh, here I am winning a title. Like 16 years into his career. It's just madness.
I just hope this is it, and he rides off in the sunset, and he doesn't do any bare knuckle boxing. I've interviewed Lawler a couple times, and if you watch the interviews, I mean, he's the most humble, respectful guy that you'll ever see. It's crazy that he's a killer. And the second the camera stops rolling and it's just one-on-one, it's the exact same. It's more of the same. I mean, he's a little more, he's less PC behind the scenes, but he is a fighter's fighter. He is everything you would expect him to be, much like George St. Pierre. These guys just are who they are, whether it's in front of 50,000 people or in front of 3 people.
Lawler's great. His great passions in life are like fishing and high school football. So if we're going to see anything out of Lawler in the future, it'll probably just be like, him showing up for talking, like breaking down low-level regional Iowa football games or something.
Yeah, and coaching. He's been starting to coach a lot, and he's been cornering Logan Storley, who's been making waves over in Bellator. So I expect to see him in the corner of some guys.
Yeah, the dude has always had a great mind for the game. I'm sure there's a lot to impart there. Always, I wonder how much it'll be, because sometimes it's all like knowing how to do it isn't knowing how to teach it. Yeah, and true. Lawler seems like one of those guys who a lot of his fighting comes very naturally to him. But, it's always, you never know. I never can tell who's going to make like a great, awesome coach and who's terrible at it. You see fighters all the time where you're like, oh, who could this guy coach? And then you see him in the gym working with him. You're like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
But man, what a story. What a legend.
What a story. Yeah.
What a privilege for us to be able to
no kidding.
That, man.
All right. That brings us to a flyweight, catchweight bout, 130 pounds, Tatsuro Tyra against Edgar Chairez. And, all things considered, not a great fight for Tyra, really. He had a dominant, controlling round that gave him a 10-8 in there, but then he actually got stuck in that guillotine late. And whenever he was on the feet, Chairez made his boxing look pretty bad. So it was a fine win. He did the job. He keeps the train rolling as a flyweight prospect, but not a hype building fight for him at all.
No, this could have been scored the other way. Honestly, it could have been. The closest that third round came to being finished was that guillotine at the very end.
Tyra has definitely won the third round. I just didn't think he won either the other two.
The first round, what are you talking about? He buckled him and he dropped him, Tyra.
Yeah, but then he got swarmed for the rest of the round. I would have been shocked if any judges gave him that first round. But here, I'll see if I can find the card. We can settle this. Let's see.
Yeah, I thought he gave up that first round.
Tyra won the first two rounds on all three judges' scorecards.
Wow.
So, yeah. Well, there you go.
I guess I'm tripping. I guess you can get buckled by a leg kick and get dropped, and I guess still win the round.
Yeah. Anyway, that only undercuts the idea this is not a great fight for Tyra.
Honestly, it wasn't a great fight for either.
No. I mean,
that jump in the guillotine.
No.
Yes, he ended the fight in that position, but it also cost him position several times throughout.
I mean, Tyra's took this on a few days' notice, so I'm not going to really knock him too much. And he has a bad habit of grappling off his back and going for risky subs, so that is something he needs to work on. But for Tyra, you were expected to stomp this fight, and did not happen.
It was a tough fight.
Yep. All right, that gets us to the actual shocking upset of the card. Denise Gomes, Yasmin Harqui, and Gomes, her pre-UFC fights, they were not special. You go watch her in Invicta and in the regional scene, and you see a lot of pressure and a lot of not throwing and a lot of winning from getting opponents to just back up so long that they get tired and break down. And you're like, okay, yeah, I guess that's, you won, but it's not pretty. And you're getting to the UFC and people are they're going to throw a lot more than you. And what are you going to do about it? And then she had a fight with Loma Lookboonmee. And that kind of came out. It's just oh, yeah, okay, so you don't throw enough. And Loma Lookboonmee could take you down and beat you up and make you pay for all the pressure without the volume. She looked good against Bruna Brazil last time out. Bruna Brazil is not very good. Yasmin Harqui, she's legit. That is a legit, very good rising contender in this division. And Gomes just went out there and smashed her.
20 seconds.
Shocking.
Knockout. Cold.
Yeah.
What? This is a classic storming of a castle.
Yeah.
She wasn't ready.
No.
This is the record for the fastest knockout in strawweight history.
Yeah, it was great win for Gomes. I'm really, honestly, with the power she has, the pressure she's always shown, if she can keep pulling the trigger like this, she can be a problem. If she can go out there, because those punches too that she landed on Harqui, those were clean. That was not just swanging and banging and the sort of spray and pray. Those were clean, perfectly placed shots.
They were all right hands. She had to reset after every one of them.
It's true.
They were beautiful. This was man.
Yep. Great fight for Gomes. Rough loss for Harqui. I think she'll bounce back. I think. A lot of fighters can take some. Getting caught cold like that early in a fight is not the worst sign for a fighter. It's just something that can happen. You know, we've seen, like, hell, it happened to Alexander Volkanovski early in his career, you know?
I mean, we were just talking about Aaron Pico.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, actually.
He got club and tech subbed in his debut.
Oh, and it was in the third round for Volkanovski. It didn't actually happen to Volkanovski, but he did get knocked out early in his career. But, you know, it happened to Robert Whittaker against Stephen Thompson early in his career. You know, like, it's not the end of the world to have that kind of loss, but it should be a learning point considering that Harqui also got hurt and dropped by Estela Nunez early in her last fight too. Like, she comes out with a lot of aggression and a lot of pressure, and it's like, maybe you should, like, check your defense just a little more while you're trying to feel out the fight and figure out your opponent. Trying to storm people right away early in a fight like that when you're a little cold, you know.
I don't know. She might have chin issues. Like, you're on the losing end of the record for the fastest knockout in the lightest division.
Yeah,
not a good.
It's not a good thing. I'm saying it's too early to tell with the chin issues. Hopefully, it's a correction issue that she can correct through. Like, don't start so fast if you're going to be cold. Like, if you're not going to feel like you are right in rhythm from the beginning, don't go right out and charge into somebody's wheelhouse. Slow down just a little. But if it's a chin problem, then yeah, that's too bad because she got such a great technical game. I love it otherwise. All right. Alonzo Manifield, Jimmy Crute. I was a little shocked with how many people I saw picking Crute going into this fight.
Sure. Especially after their first encounter.
Yeah, because the story of the first encounter was, sure, Manifield got really tired and he got in plenty of bad spots. But he also, like, literally almost killed Crute on, like, 4 different occasions in that first fight.
He probably knocked him out at least 3 times.
How do you watch that and be like, oh, if they run this back, my bet is on the guy who had a sloppy performance having equally as sloppy performance, and not the guy who almost died several times magically not almost dying again.
What's shocking to me is that it happened with a guillotine.
Yeah, well, nobody would have called Alonzo Manifield by submission.
That was shocking to me. I thought he was going to knock him out. But for him to stop a takedown with a guillotine and, like, actually chase it down, oh, that was beautiful. Someone was freaking out too. Like, why is Crute rolling to his back? What is he doing? Like, that's what you do. That's how you defend a guillotine. You roll to your back. Like, we saw it with Tyra at the end of his fight. What happened? He was caught in the guillotine. How did he defend? He rolled to his back.
Was it DC who was like, oh, he tapped out kind of quick, and then they showed him, like, his neck is getting broken, man. Like,
see, but DC's never in those positions. He doesn't understand that.
He doesn't do that.
He's way too alpha for those submissive positions.
That's right. DC would never get himself submitted. Crute, though, looked like he was going to retire after the fight. Yeah. Took his gloves off, put him down, and his corner made him go get him and, like, pick him back up. Like, I always hate to see stuff like that because I'm of the mind, like, if you want to get out of this game, get out. Like, if your heart and soul are not 100% in fighting to every ounce of your being, go, please do something else. Find another path, because this place will not be kind.
Sure, if that's what it is. We don't know that's what it is, right? Another possibility, another option could be Crute's like, man, I'm the grappler, and I just got fucking submitted by Alonzo Manifield. Nah, I'm done. I don't. That's it for me. If I'm getting submitted by Alonzo Manifield, I probably don't belong here. I'm done.
Yeah, I don't know.
The dude hasn't won since October of 2020.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would also just say retiring might not be the worst idea for how hard he gets hit all the time.
Very unforgiving division, especially with someone whose MO is to come out and grapple.
Yeah.
Not the division. He needs to go have a drink with Paul Craig.
Yeah.
Talk about some things.
All right, that brings us to the to the prelims. Vitor Petrino, Marcin Prachnio. Really, basically, don't want to talk about this fight. Prachnio, Prachnio did all right for like a couple of minutes, and then Petrino started to bully him a little, convince him that he didn't really actually want this fight, and Prachnio more or less obliged from that point forward.
This was a slow burn. The first round was pretty fun. Prachnio was actually biting down and slinging some leather. It got pretty exciting, but once the grappling started, it just, it really sucked the air out of the fight.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like, this is one of those things too for me where it's like every time I see Prachnio fight, and every time he gets into a hard fight, he really looks like he hates it.
Right.
And I'm just like, man, how do you do this? Like, how did you get to this point in your life where you are out here fighting people in a cage in front of a crowd for money, and you're just like, I don't like it. Like, this is not smart life management, man.
Have you ever seen A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger? You know the one guy that's like always so angry? He's like him.
Yeah.
It's like he I don't know, man. He did really well in that first round.
Yeah, he's got the size, he's got the strength. He even has a lot of the durability with his when he's got his eyes focused and all that. Like, he didn't get shut out of this fight. He didn't get hurt so bad he couldn't keep fighting in this fight. He just got to a point where he clearly did not enjoy any part of it. So, anyway, Petrino gets a win. He gets a he grabbed a finish, so he saved a pretty bleh performance with that. But
and it was a late finish too, so that is a huge plus. Someone who will go after it late, even though they have it in the bag.
Yeah. Otherwise, bantamweight bout: Cameron Simon, Terrence Mitchell. Mitchell really was just not ready to be in the UFC. Coming out crushing cans on Alaska regional scene, and basically that's what this fight looked like.
I like that he went for it though.
Yeah, he went for it. He has the style of somebody used to everybody just absolutely imploding when they tie up. So the aggression is there. It's that used to being like, oh yeah, if I come after you and I go for it, you're just gonna fold. I will dominate. And Simon just was like, no, I can just actually reverse everything you do and
beat you
be better at it. Yeah. So
it's badass, honestly.
Yeah.
Dude's 9-0, clean win.
Yep.
I mean, what's not to like here?
Yeah.
He's on that Drickus train.
He is. Bantamweight is going to be a much, much harder division to do that, and he's not half the athlete Drickus is, but he's fun. I mean, like everybody in those two dudes, I'm assuming everybody else in their gym, I haven't seen everybody else in their gym, but those two dudes, if they represent their gym, they're scrappy as hell,
Mm-hmm.
They will not quit for anything. So, all right, flyweight bout: Jesus Aguilar absolutely murdered Shannon Ross. Put out an APB. We've got a homicide because
nobody fucks with the Jesus.
No.
Nobody.
Man. And I feel bad too, because I was going into this and like I'm writing in all my previews and everything. I'm like, man, Shannon Ross doesn't have the chin to be competing at this level. And just
Aguilar do it.
Yeah, he just sat down on one right hand, and that man was out. He was seeing dimensions, sights unknown. He came back with like a letter from Aguilar's grandma.
He came back religious.
Yeah.
He met his creator.
He was way knocked out. Great win for Aguilar. He has the muscle, he has the speed, the power. He's got the physical side to be a really good flyweight. So it's all just about putting all the technique together for him.
Man, 17-second knockout. What was going on tonight? What was in the water?
I don't know, man. This is a great card. All that opened up Esteban Rabovich, Camuela Kirk, and man, this is a great fight too. Like,
it was decent.
Yeah, Kirk came out. He took Rabovich down, kind of held him down. You're like, oh, this is how it's going to go. You saw Rabovich get out wrestled by that other dude. But the moment a little bit of steam went off Kirk's shot, he's not actually a good enough wrestler to just duck in and get easy takedowns. He had to really walk into the pocket. And that meant every time he wanted to shoot in after that, he had to step right into punching range and then try to duck in. And started getting lit up, and it took all the confidence out of his game.
I think he petered out a little bit too in that opening round with all that back control.
Yeah,
that's exhausting.
Yeah,
I mean, I really think he did everything he could, and he kept trying to force the rear naked chokes. They weren't just there. That Ribovics was not giving it up easily, and I think Kirk just kind of tired himself out. Just going a little too hard with the dominant position. Didn't pay off.
Once you got stranded kickboxing with him, that was not a good place to be. I really love how smooth Rabovich's power transfer is. Like, that dude can put long combinations together and make it look really smooth and easy. He does such a good job of moving his body. Like, each punch he throws, it moves him in position for the next punch. So he's out there like throwing 10 or 15 punches.
And I like it and I don't like it. I like it because it reminds me of Vicente Luque, kind of how like very hittable. However, the strikes that they're throwing, their offense is gorgeous.
Yeah,
you can't sit there and just trade with them because they're willing to eat these shots to dish out what they have. So it's makes for really fun fights, but it also puts them in harm's way often.
I mean, it's definitely one of those things. Like, it used to be a big problem with Robert Whittaker, less so now. Although it kind of came back for this fight with Dricus. That like, it's the thing of like you're chasing extra strikes in the pocket, where you're staying in the pocket longer because you see more opportunities for stuff you can do, and it's like, yeah, that's cool, but you are right there, like right in front of somebody to get hit in return, and. That was like a big problem for Whittaker in like the Yoel fights. And you could easily see that being something that Rabovich has to contend with later on. But it's so fun to watch when it's clicking on offense. Like, I don't care. For me, the fan, I'm just like, you're putting like 15 punches together and it doesn't make you tired. That's beautiful,
Oh, for sure. He flows. He definitely flows.
All right. Kick it back up to the top. Alexander Volkanovski, still king of the featherweight division, looking great.
Zane, is he the pound for pound greatest fighter in the world?
Oh, I hate these questions. I want to say yes, because there's a good argument. He went toe to toe with Makhachev, and I wouldn't argue that he beat Makhachev, but at the end of the fight he was beating him.
Right.
And so, because that's the difficulty of like, is somebody pound for pound? It's like, oh, if they go up and have a super fight and they lose it, well, that doesn't, like the pound for pound is supposed to be the guy who, like, across all weight divisions would win anything if it's skill for skill kind of thing.
You mean like John Jones?
Yeah.
But he went up and won.
I know, but the middleweight and up, these aren't real divisions. This is all one class, really. We got Alex Pereira out there.
Tell that to OSP. Tell that to Alexander Gustafsson.
I know.
Tell that to Luke Rockhold. There's plenty of guys that tried to move up and got absolutely pantsed.
I know. But anyway, Volkanovski is definitely. I mean, he's great. He's great. That's all that matters. And Pantoja, I'll be fascinated to see how long he keeps this flyweight title. I love that he got to win it. I mean, dude has put in all the work in all of the anonymity to get to this point and win this belt. So that's really cool. Yeah. All right. On that note, we're going to sign off. If you are a subscriber to our Substack, we're going to have some bonus content dropping on our Substack podcast that we're going to go record right here in just a bit. But for those of you watching us on YouTube and all that, Thank you all for listening. Check out our Substack, the Bloody Elbow Podcast Substack. Subscribe, share our shows, give us a like, all that good stuff. You can find me on Twitter at Zane. You can find Eddie on Twitter at the Eddie Mercado. You can find both of us over at bloodyelbow.com. We will see you all next time.